Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, Sohale Sizar, who's here to share with us the hot new messaging journal, Soul. So isn't it time there was some innovation regarding journals? Well, today's guest is going to share with us just that. Sohale Sizar is a Stanford-backed gratitude expert on the power of gratitude to heal. An entrepreneur since the age of 9, with 15 years of dedicated practice in meditation and gratitude, Sohale translated his experiences into earning a Stanford MBA and building ventures spanning nonprofit charities, education, and consumer technology. Sohale has impacted millions of lives and facilitated access to one's inner light through his gratitude teachings. So let's welcome to the show, Sohale Sizar.
Thank you so much, Marianne. Thank you for having me.
Well, what an honor it is to have you here and to have another discussion. I'm just so curious about all the things that you've done in the past. I've heard you've been a pretty busy guy.
That's for sure. I started when I was 9. I had an idea to cure AIDS using genetic therapy. I sent letters across the country. It sounds crazy, to PhD labs to see if I could get in to study it. And I eventually got into a PhD lab in high school to study this idea I spent time that I built a literacy foundation where we would reroute books from kids who have to kids in need. An anti-bullying system, because at one point you had to call a school to report if you had a bullying incident versus just, messaging it digitally. So yes, I have been pretty busy, but all with the ethos of how can we have and live a better life? How can we make our lives easier, more simple, and we can spend more time loving those who we care about?
Well, you're definitely ahead of your time, I'll tell you that. Because I think most kids at that age are not thinking about how to change the world, but thank goodness we have people like you that are.
Yeah, it is a blessing, but I have to say it's really because of I give a lot of credit obviously to my parents. I'm sure my mom will be happy to hear that. They at a young age they said you're a leader. This is who you are, and I felt compelled and called to make it okay to make a difference. I mean, this sounds really crazy, but I'm sure so when I was 4, you know how kids, they have a job they want to be when they grow up, right, Marianne? Like they want to be a firefighter, or they want to be. So I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I think I want to be a prophet when I grow up. My dad's like, what are you talking about? Um, and and really it was from this ethos of this, and this idea of how can you make a difference in life. And so he's like, well, prophets don't really, it's not really a thing, but maybe it could be something like, something like a Martin Luther King, try to make a difference. And so that was the ethos that I had as a child. And of course that has evolved over time of how I see myself, but still that core is there. So I give him credit.
I'm sure they'll both be very appreciative of that, hearing that the credits were credits due. But it's amazing what encouragement at such a young age can really kind of foster in children.
I agree. And it's so moving to know though that what I loved about my parents and how they've done it, at least for me. I don't know if there's a right way, but my mom and my dad never really told me what to do. There was always about stories, stories of my ancestors, stories of figures throughout history, and I would listen to these stories and I'd be inspired and say, well, I want to be like that. And actually, Philip Zimbardo, a lot of us know Philip Zimbardo for the prison study experiment at Stanford University, which was one of the most renowned experiments in psychology to this day. Afterwards, he did a lot of research around heroes and found that it is essential for us to have heroes that we can relate to as they inspire us to be our best selves. I think it's kind of hard sometimes for me, at least, to see my hero as a Spider-Man or Batman because, I'm not going to be sleeping in a cave, hopefully, with bats and changing the world. So having heroes in our lives that we can relate to, whether they're alive or not, I think is extremely important in life.
I could not agree more. I think one of the people I actually pay attention to, Brad Meltzer, he writes a children's book series on ordinary people change the world that kind of talk to that, where we're looking for different types of superheroes in our lives.
Yeah. That's very lovely. For me, it was my third grade teacher. So my third grade teacher, Miss Wilson, she was in the civil rights era. And I would have to say for the up till second grade, I was just in an environment where I didn't really feel regarded or heard or seen and I thought at that point that even being treated some basic decency was more of a privilege than a right. And so I had my inner world of how can I be the best version of myself, but outwardly in school I was very much hanging out actually with the folks who ran recess, the teachers who ran recess versus the kids and playing. And it didn't change until I went into third grade and I had this teacher named Miss Wilson. And Miss Wilson was in the civil rights era. And she was so funny. She had so much passion. And and we would learn about topics like tolerance in third grade. She would just go on talking about tolerance and equality. And I remember one day she put on this speech of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I Have a Dream. And it was for the first time, as when I was in third grade at that time, I think I was about 7 or 8 years old, where I said, wow, respect is actually a right. Everyone can, you have empower themselves to make a change. And it's amazing. And Miss Wilson, I remember telling her, I said, Miss Wilson, you're an angel. And she changed my life. And it's people like that. They don't have to be famous. They don't have to be, you know, have a certain net worth. It's because they simply have a heart pure. That's a pure heart of gold, and they can change someone's life to this day.
So, why don't you share with us the first business that you built?
Yeah. So, I would say the one that really stuck with me that I feel compelled to share today is Illume. And so, when I was at in business school, a lot of my classmates were apprehensive to open up and share positivity and gratitude. They were afraid that they'd be judged if people knew what they felt about them, especially the positive stuff. So they didn't want to come across as brown nosing. Long story short, I created a way for people to anonymously report or share positivity and gratitude, and it led to this burst of humanity. We even had a marriage come out of it. And what ended up happening is it realized to me, wow, if we have this ability for people to digitally share and open up how they feel about one another, we can really change the world. And so that led to Illume. Illume ultimately became a tool where folks, no matter where they are in the country, they can pool videos and photos and notes. We even patented a key element of all of this, and even money for a group gift. And tapping into a marketplace we created of local small businesses across the country, and send it to a recipient all digitally. So, Marianne, if it's your birthday, they go to our site, they create a card, they invite friends, family, or colleagues to the card. Everyone puts in their notes, etc., and we beautifully package it. And I say that it was arguably the most loved celebration platform. I say it was because it was acquired by a titan in the space that has expanded our impact to more than 10 million people across the country.
Well, that's pretty exciting to see something like that you bring into the world really grow and evolve.
It's inspiring, and but to be vulnerable with you is also a little bit sad, and I'll tell you why. Because what we found is, um, more often than not, folks were reactive to sharing love versus proactive. How many of us know we should send that nice note to somebody or someone who made a difference, but it just slips our mind, or oh gosh, to the last minute. And so, for me, it was a little bit of I was a little bummed to see how much last minute kind of uh, last minute work was made to remember someone. I wish that we were more proactive on it, but I understand too. We're all very busy. We're running around, and the fact that we were able to make it easier for others, we facilitated more than 400,000 notes, uh, is still very meaningful to me.
Well, it's interesting if you think about it. Everyone comes in from different levels of education when it comes to writing notes and saying thank you. So having something like that that prompts people is probably teaching them a life skill they didn't start with.
I agree with you, and it also what it actually inspired what this next creation, Soul, because with Illum, Illum was very much, I would say it's separate. It was more of in the idea that you were sharing positivity and gratitude to others for specific milestones. And what I found though, that is that we also care a lot about ourselves, and we ourselves have to feel that positivity and gratitude and love for us to be able to give it to others, right? That is such a key part of this. We must be filled inwardly in order to be able to give. Otherwise, how are we able to give? It's very, logical. And so with Soul, basically it's a gratitude tool. It makes it easier than ever to build a gratitude practice. It's all text message based, right in our phones, very simple. And the ethos is really, how do we build access to that inner light, that inner self, so that we feel the positive and gratitude, we see the abundance in our life, so that we are able to then extend that to others.
With having these gratitude prompts, is that something that happens on a daily basis with Soul? How does that work?
It's spontaneous, and there's a reason for that. I did a gratitude journal. I did it for 5 days. The estimate is about 100 million people in this country, in America, in the United States, buy a journal and fail to keep up a journal. And so I started off with doing a daily journal, and I'm a part of the statistics. I failed after 5 days of writing in that physical journal. It wasn't until I started small. A lot of folks like to reference the book Atomic Habits, which talks about starting with habits really small. And in order to ultimately create a long-term habit, I started small by sending spontaneous nudges to myself. So I didn't know when I was going to receive the prompt. And that's how Soul works. It sends spontaneous nudges over text message. You don't know when you're going to receive it. And so because you don't know, you're more likely to be surprised when you get it. You feel more of a sense of novelty, and therefore you're more likely to respond and create a longer term habit. And that's exactly what we are seeing with those who are using Soul.
How about the spirituality part of it? How does that increase one or help one, develop a spiritual practice of some sort?
It's such a lovely question, because gratitude, whether you look at any spiritual tradition, you name, gratitude is a part of it. Gratitude really is the remembrance of who we are, and who we are. It really is that we are enough. Oprah, she mentioned at one point that in nearly every interview that she's done, after the interview, the person says, "Was that good? Do you think they'll like it?" The sense of validation, and she mentions about how there's this perception or desire to say, "Am I enough?" And what gratitude is doing is tapping into that inner self that is true with the reality that we are enough, that our beings are enough, that finding joy and happiness and love, yes, we experience those externally from our lives. They start also internally. And so what we've done, and this is so exciting to me, because there's nothing like this in the United States. This is, I think, brilliant, and everyone in your audience can judge for themselves, which is that many of us try to find our path, right? We want joy, we want happiness, we want to find, inner peace. And so we go on a journey. We read books, we listen to podcasts, we talk to people who seem in our life, aligned with our values. And a lot of folks don't know where to start. So what we've done, and this is just, again, I'm so blown away with it, because this is the first time that someone has pioneered personalized wellness, which is what we're able to leverage the gratitude journal. There's so many insights from one's gratitude journal, and give personalized recommendations of practitioners, books, podcasts, wellness centers, local events to your psychology that would deepen your inner joy. And we've scaled it all across the US, whether you're in Alabama, Kansas, Miami, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, wherever you are. That's something I'm so excited by. So anyone can ultimately discover who they are. I know it's a long answer, but it just means a lot to me, and I feel like I feel so compelled to share
Well, I'm glad you did, and there are no long answers, so don't worry about that.
it.
So, well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an author, speaker, or expert who is looking for more publicity? Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up for free interview requests from shows looking for guests. Radio Guest List is the #1 free booking resource for radio, podcasts, and TV talk shows who are looking for experts like you right now. Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up today to get the visibility you deserve.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special. When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest, Sohale Sizar, who's here sharing with us Soul, the transformation of journaling. So how has Soul benefited your life personally?
Oh God, Marianne, it is how has it benefited? It has enabled me, this is for me personally, see divinity throughout my life. And what is for me divinity is oneness, it's peace, it's love, it's resurrection, it's communion. And see it not only on the vertical, not just transcendentally, like a beautiful sunrise and a sunset in the ocean or whatever nature in particular comes to mind in a vertical sense of life, but also with others, experiencing the kindness and love of others and seeing that. Sometimes it's so easy to be conditioned to see what is lacking, right? The glass half empty, what could have been. But to go on the scale, even slightly, to see more of, well, yes, that maybe was a situation that was out of alignment with me, but I'm so grateful for this part of it. And to feel that I am enough and to experience that level of abundance has transformed my heart and how I see myself. That's how it's transformed my life. What's moving is that we hear from folks who've used Soul, and they have, similar stories in their own ways, of course, and I could go on forever of those stories, but that's how it's transformed me.
Well, why don't you share a story with us? I know we'd always love to hear about those.
Yeah, stories are fun. So one individual who comes to mind, he saw himself. He was a photographer, really just struggling or working hard to grow his photography business, and he really cares about improving and seeing the abundance of his life. And so he started using Soul. And what Soul was doing is slowly, very step by step, transforming his statements, his mind, and this is how he shared it with me. His his framing of the world of a scarcity based version to a more abundant version, and he started getting suddenly building deeper relationships, expanding business just by simply shifting his mindset. Other people who were a fit for his business started coming into his life, and now he's working with some of the most renowned and notorious folks in the United States. He even did photography for LeBron James. I mean, and so for him now, he doesn't even see himself as a photographer. He sees himself as a creative leader and director. The difference to say I'm a photographer taking photos to creating stories, to the power of photos, is so different. And he credits Soul with that transformation.
I understand that you have other things that are involved because it's such a community. What other things come with Soul?
Yeah, so we have something called the Soul Fam, which I love. We host dinners across the country, bringing people together over food, and it's a place to build community, to have deep conversation. That's to talk about life. It's a safe place. Something else that we also have is a Soul Fam map, and that's for folks who are in the Soul Fam community. We have places across the country that we've vetted that are soulful. It could be a wellness spot, it can be a restaurant, and we even give specifics like, oh, go to this restaurant and the owner's name is this, and they're very sweet, and say hi to them, and maybe they'll even give an extra, dessert or something on them. Really just to build community of soulful people across the country. And last but not least, we're piloting something now called Soul Pods, which is really fun, where for those who opt into it, we give them we match them up into a group of 2 to 3 individuals, and based off of compatibility of gratitude journals. And so you're put into this pod of 2 to 3 people, just one time. If the group wants to continue going, they can, just to have a conversation about life and get to know someone different from them. But there's a strong likelihood you're probably going to like each other given the compatibility of those gratitude journals.
I think it's so profound to be part of a community that develops real relationships beyond the messaging journal.
I mean, community is what we all seek. It's essential to being human. It really, really is. And COVID taught us that. And community is the heart of what I'm doing. I mean, Soul is about recognizing also the humanity, not only of ourselves, but others. And we do that through sharing life with one another. And that's where we transcend our differences and our perspectives to be more united as a people, as a country, and as communities.
So let's talk about soul and AI. What's going on with the two?
Yeah, so a lot of journal entries that folks have, and of course this is opt-in only. At at the default is that one's messages are encrypted on Soul's database. For those who opt in, they are able to get a lot of psychological insights about themselves. And so a lot of folks, there's many perspectives of AI. Some of it that can be, it could be harming or evil. Some of it's dehumanizing. Some of it's positive, that it can be a tool for good. And in this example, it is a tool for good. Our gratitude journals have so much insights about what we care about, themes, perspectives, even who's making that impact on your life. And that's where we're leveraging AI. We're leveraging AI to give you those insights on who you are. So what are the patterns of thinking that are leading you to be grateful? What are the words that you're sharing most of? What's your soul light type is what we call it, which is how you find inner joy, the pattern of how you find inner joy. Areas in life you're sharing gratitude. Areas in your life, maybe there's less, you're sharing less gratitude. That's how we're leveraging AI to be a mirror, to give a reflection of your most beautiful self. And then a step from that is that personalized wellness, that personalized wellness dashboard, essentially, of getting recommendations based off of your psychology of practitioners and healers and workshops and local events, et cetera, to deepen your inner joy. So it's leveraging AI to work for you in finding more inner peace, experiencing more inner joy.
That sounds so fascinating how that all comes together. Are you finding that people that are using Soul are able, they're going back and kind of revisiting some of their older dates that they started and just kind of in some ways meditating over their journey?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the most asked features early on was, can you bring back what I wrote a week ago? Or bring back, bring back something I wrote 1 month ago. And we've implemented that. And of course, I mean, you and I and everyone knows how we go through life. And do we remember everything that happened last week, for example, like Wednesday? Of course not. But by recalling it, we are able to relive those experiences and see the abundance in our life. And so it's, to your point, it's actually it was such a desire that folks were constantly requesting it. It was the number one request from our community.
And why don't you share for our listeners that didn't hear our last discussion what the Soul Messaging Journal does?
Yes, so it sends spontaneous nudges of gratitude over text message. So, as I mentioned earlier, I struggled to do a journal. I needed something that was going to send me spontaneous nudges, and that was right in my phone. Right, I can't carry a journal with me everywhere. And so what Soul does is it's a text message based tool. You just sign up online, 10 seconds, and then you start getting these text messages with prompts, gratitude prompts, and some of them are quotes. Some of them range from different elements of life. And so you just respond to the text message. And you don't know when you're going to receive the text message. You may receive it on a Monday and then a Wednesday. And you can respond with photos, videos, voice memos. So if you don't like to type, you can talk in it, or you can just send a photo or a video. And then all of that is encrypted on this online journal where you can remember all the moments that you're loved. And if you want to opt in and learn more about yourself and who you are and where you find joy, you're able to do that too. And so that's how Soul works. There's a lot of other features a part of that, but in essence, that's how it works.
Do you also have a quiz that people can take on the Soul website?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, one of the things that's really powerful is how do we find inner joy, and what we've basically have trained this LLM, this AI on some esoteric texts, mystical texts, that there's 6 different types of soul light types, and we have quiz that you can basically discover your soul light type. These texts are very much private, and I've been grateful to have access to them. And what they do is that they show, for example, I'm a transcendent light. So I find gratitude through spirituality and those types of experiences. When you realize what your light type is, you're then able to double down on bringing more of that in your life, and then ultimately then more gratitude and more joy and more happiness and more oxytocin, the love hormone, or and serotonin, which is regulated with mood, and more dopamine, which is related to the reward system in the mind.
I love that you can take this test and kind of learn more about you and your spiritual practice and your gratitude practice as you're going along your path.
Yeah, I agree, and it was so important to make it very simple and accessible for folks. So I appreciate you sharing that, and to your point, it's a very very powerful way to learn more about who you are, because when we know about ourselves, we're able to then support ourselves to be happier and create the life that we'd like to live.
So the reason that the messages are spontaneous is that so that we start developing these habits?
Yes, exactly. It's really starting small. A lot of folks, when they start daily, they after a few days or a week, they fall off. They said, "Oh gosh, I got another message of this, whatever," and they kind of close the message. But when you get it spontaneously, you don't know when you're going to receive it. And then when you do receive it, there's a heightened sense of novelty. And then that novelty then allows you to be more receptive to answering. And so we have this decrescendo and crescendos throughout that we can that inform this algorithm of us sending those prompts to you. And so that's a key part of building a habit, is starting small, being merciful to yourself. You can respond with even one word or a photo, whatever works, but it's just starting small, being merciful with ourselves, because this habit is one of the most powerful habits in the world. Every person who's experienced, whether they've experienced nirvana or business success or whatever success you want to define, can testify that gratitude is and was a key part of their journey.
Now, is this research backed?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mentioned, I alluded to it slightly previously, but there's about 30 years of data, really phenomenal research that shows that gratitude can transform so many elements of our lives. For example, and some of this I didn't even know when I first started off about learning about gratitude. For example, gratitude is shown to improve quality of sleep. Gratitude increases longevity. So those who are grateful, live longer. Those who are grateful have better cardiovascular health. There's, strong studies that show that. Those who are grateful have more pain tolerance. Those who are grateful have less anxiety and burnout and stress, and feel less lonely. And of course, to the opposite, those who have gratitude are happier and more joyful and content. It's even good for your quality of your skin. And here's why. Because when one shares gratitude, consistently what we find is that there are 3 neurotransmitters that are released. And I mentioned earlier, oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. And all of these just make us happy. They make us feel closer to the world around us, this idea of common humanity. They strengthen our bonds in our relationships, whether it's with our partners, whether it's with our family or friends. And they make us feel good inside, right in the gut. And that's what the research shows. And that's why gratitude is so important. It's just that so many of us struggle with it, and hence why I created Soul.
And I can't wait to ask this question. So as we go through our messages, is that something that we can create into a book or to other things?
Yeah. So you can print your messages that you send into a book. You can print it out into a book. If you can even take excerpts of it and put it on a bracelet as a memento to remind yourself about certain moments that have moved you, or even on a mug. And they make great gifts, especially for the holiday season. They're so personable, simple, and yet extremely meaningful.
I know a lot of people are probably highly interested in that, especially when we can take all those memories and put them into something that we can keep later. I mean, what a gift that is.
Agreed. And it's one of those gifts you cherish, you just keep with you. And every time you see, for example, that mug on the desk, you're reminded. It's actually psychologically, it can be considered an anchor, right? As you see those moments, you're reminded of abundance and being loved. And for those who want to experience it, you just go to www.bringsoul.life and sign up in less than 10 seconds and start receiving those text messages.
Well, Sohale, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you, Marianne. It's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you for your insightful questions.
Thank you, Sohale. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your hot new messaging journal, Soul. Try Soul now by going to bringonsoul.com. It's unlike any journal you've ever used, and you're going to love it. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.